Steven, how bad for ball is it that Shohei Ohtani won't be pitching again this season?
I think it's even worse for ball that he's playing at all.
Really?
What's the point of having him out there?
Because it's Shohei.
It's great, but the Angels aren't in playoff contention. Mike Trout's back on the IL. I'd say it's bad for ball.
It's a bad day for Tom Tolbert, I'll tell you that. Huge Angels fan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he gets for being an Angels fan.
What's going on, everybody? Just your opinion, man. Steven Langford, Derek Papa. Yeah, just real quick, Steven. Shohei Ohtani. We'll get to a bunch of stuff today. A lot of football we'll discuss. But last night, got the alert. Shohei Ohtani. UCL tear. Same thing, Tommy John, that Brock Purdy experienced. And go into a contract season. And we all expected him to get $600 million. I still think he's worth that because eventually I would assume, like he has had 2 Tommy Johns now, which is not great in his favor, but I still will count on him coming back and being that dual threat that, he is. Just your thoughts on the biggest name in the sport being shut down from the pitcher's mound.
Just my thoughts, man.
Just your thoughts, man.
Well, it's crazy that he could still hit. I don't know. I mean, it didn't hit me the same in literally hit me. Didn't hit me the same in 2018 when the same thing happened. I just thought back to Purdy and the fact that Purdy could barely even move a football after he hurt his UCL in the NFC Championship, let alone trying to hit a baseball. But the fact that he went out there and went 1 for 5, I think he had a double in the second game when he went back out with the torn UCL. That's crazy to me. So it does suck though overall because this dude could, I don't know if he's going to anymore. He could break the American League home run record. I think he's at 44 right now. He wasn't exactly on pace with Aaron Judge last time I checked, but that was also 10 home runs ago. So I could be wrong there, but yeah, I personally don't think he needs to play this season. Why? What else is there to there's nothing for him to prove. I think that he'll be worth that contract. If he goes through off-season surgery, he's not going to pitch next year. So I don't think there's a point really in having him play anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just such a big deal for the game of baseball, and this sucks.
Yeah.
I still he's still exciting. He's a competitor. I understand that he still wants to go out there and hit. And he wants to show that he could still hit probably so it doesn't hurt his free agency. But I don't know. I still think that he would garner a huge contract, probably the biggest in baseball, regardless of this. I know that it's going to take away from a year of his time pitching, but I would still bank on him coming back. I don't know. This may be an excuse for teams, to pull a Giants like last year with Carlos Correa, where they see the physical and they're like, I don't know if we're going to give him all that money now. But I still want to see him go out there, and I still think he's on track to win AL MVP. I don't know. It's just good for baseball for him to be out there. It's good for ball.
Yeah.
But it's disappointing. It really is. So there really is no reason to watch baseball the rest of the season.
There's no reason. Are you not
Are
you not seeing the home run parade the A's are putting on right now?
I have not. Even though I'm wearing A's today for good reason. I've not. What's the score of that game?
It's 8-5 now.
8-5. A's winning?
Yeah.
I hope they do win tonight.
Yeah. Shea Langeliers hit a couple of them. Zach Geloff, Tony Kemp just looked like he hit one the furthest he's ever hit a ball in his life. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Shohei. I don't think this is going to hurt his free agency, but I don't know. Do you think, Steven, that this may decrease the money he gets?
That's out of, speaking of money, that's out of my pay grade. I don't know how this is going to impact it because I've never seen.
Does it help the Giants, maybe?
Maybe.
Well, maybe. I could see, the big bugaboo last offseason was Carlos Correa and Charles Johnson, Greg Johnson, whoever it was.
Yeah.
It was hung up on the amount of money, and Farhan's like, we got Shohei, and they're like, for how long, for how much? That's too much, and they don't want to do it because of his injury now. I don't know. He's so big for baseball. This sucked that this happened, but I'd still go for it.
Yeah, but this is also, I mean, is it that much of a surprise though? Like he pitches so much, he plays so much. He's only missed 2 games all season long. Like injuries are bound to happen, especially a guy who's had Tommy John before. Like they've just worked and worked and worked him, and now it's come to this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's got. He might make a little less money, but does it make him like? Does it still take him away from being the top free agent this offseason? No,
No, I don't think so.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, so news sucks last night, but we'll still see Shohei Ohtani. But the fact that he will not be pitching again this season, and you don't know really about his future, but he should be fine. Overall, though, it's kind of bad for ball. And the reason I wanted to bring up that baseball story started off, I'm sure that he would have loved to talk about this guy. Today was a rough day, and we'll get to football and everything, but our good friend Michael Urban passed away, I think, yesterday, on his 55th birthday, and it kind of shocked me. I texted you and everybody else that used to work at 95.7 The Game. Herbs was a big personality, and he came on the show a couple of years ago when we were just starting it out and told us great stories about hanging out with the Dream Team.
Yeah,
Him being in a club with Terrence Long and him dropping his weed.
yeah.
Herbs was
Some
very
random bar in like in Seattle, like an underground bar in Seattle.
something like that. And Herbs, he was very close with the big three. Um, he, I remember back in the day, Zito and Mulder and Hudson all coming on. Um, just to give you an idea of who Michael Urban was, he loved baseball. He was, born and raised here in the Bay Area. Always said that he wasn't an A's or a Giants fan. He was both. And a lot of us, me and Steven, came up through 95.7 The Game by board hopping his show Inside the Bigs or producing it. And the great thing about Herbs is that he would book his own show. You didn't have to worry about it. He had all the guest booked.
Right.
That's what he let, he always said, like, it's on me as the host to, I don't want you guys to have to worry about that. And it was fun. I have great memories of working on the weekends, and he would do all of his segments, Killers and Kooks, Good for Ball, Bad for Ball. He did the weird one where we would play a Giants cut and an A's cut and play Aaliyah underneath called Back and Forth. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Then he would do his gratitudes at the end. Thank everybody in his life, and he would have Sexy Back in the background. He loved hip hop. Some weird choices. He loved to play Fergie, loved to play Justin Timberlake, loved to play Will Smith Switch. I know you like that, Steven.
Yep.
And Herbs was a generous man. He was a good man, and but he battled some demons, and he was open about it when he came on with us. He battled alcoholism, and yeah, he had it rough for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to hear about today. I've had a lot of people, reach out to me from the 95.7 The Game days. Everybody that worked with him loved him. Yeah, man, it's really hard to hear about that today because when he was on with us 2 years ago, he shortly after that reached out to me and said, I would love for you to teach me how to do podcasting.
Yeah.
I said, anytime, man. And then after that, I couldn't really get a hold of him. His texts weren't going through. You call him and it went straight to voicemail. I did hear that he resurfaced a little bit. He went to Houston. He was getting on social media a little bit, but we get the news today, and it's just terrible to hear. Rest in peace to Michael Urban. He was the man.
Yeah. I read a bunch of his Substacks earlier today too. Some of his more recent ones. He was such a gifted writer.
Oh,
Just like I'm reading that, and I'm just like, there's certain people who have just it when it comes to writing. Like I think of guys Like Ray Ratto, for example, just the way that he uses his words, no one else would be able to do it like that. And I think Urban kind of had that gift. Yeah, when I first met him, when I first saw him, that was on TV on CSN Bay Area doing the A stuff. I was like, who's this cool guy with the earrings? Then then eventually met him through Inside the Bigs. That's where I was first his board op. Yeah, he loved his music, man.
Oh yeah.
He really loved his music. Like before, when we play music coming back from a break, he'd normally have requests, but eventually he realized that I kind of knew my shit, so he trusted me with it. And it was like before you'd go into the segment, he'd always like be closing his eyes and kind of just like bobbing his head a little bit and moving to the beat. But like I think when we first really like connected, it was when as far as music goes, like that's what we first started talking about in depth. You know, before all the sports stuff, it was music, and it was Mac Miller. He was a huge Mac Miller fan.
Yeah, he was.
He played Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, loved Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, which is like one of Mac Miller's first songs. And then eventually, like a few years later, when he came on to do the pregame show, he was actually one of the hosts that came on to do it at 5 a.m. It was kind of going through a trial run once Kolsky was out.
Mhm.
To be honest, the early mornings did not suit Herbs too well. He, like the 5 a.m. shift was not going to be sustainable, but he was always just so nice. And you talk about like his demons. He was always so open about it. Very honest, very vulnerable when he would go on the air. And to anyone out there who was dealing with the same troubles, he was not afraid to like just lend a voice and kind of tell people listening. And we did have listeners who were struggling with it. Maybe he said the words that maybe someone needed to hear that specific day for whatever reason. He tried to use radio for good. A lot of us just use it to kind of, as a lot of us are self-indulgent at some capacity doing that, but he wasn't really like that. And the last time I talked to him was the time we interviewed him, which was a couple of years ago. And then just hearing those stories, I'd heard a couple of them before, not the Terrence Long one, but just how connected he was and how he just wanted to be like a better person and used his time at 95.7 specifically as like a kind of like new life for him, because he always talked about, I couldn't picture it because of how nice he was, but he always said he called himself an asshole back when he was working as like a beat reporter with the A's. That's what he would call himself. And I could never picture that. So he was always willing to give advice if you ever asked for it. I forgot what he said, but one time I hosted like my first 4-hour show. It was right after him and Tittle. And then he came in one time and he goes, "Hey, Steve, stop saying everything's 100%. Like, like stop saying 100%. Reply to everything when you agree with it. You don't need to say 100% every time." Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah. So he'd always, he was just always willing to give advice whenever, some people don't do it. They just let it happen and just say, "Can you believe this guy says this on the air? Listen to how many times he says it in one sentence." Whereas Herbs goes to you straight up and says, "Hey, you're saying that word a little too much. Just dial it back because it sounds repetitive." Like that kind of thing. He wasn't afraid to do that. So I was always a big fan of Herbs, man.
No, dude, I loved him. He was honestly one of the first hosts that I connected with. We would give each other shit on, music and stuff. Like he loved, what was the band later on? 21 Savage?
He loved, it was 21 Pilots.
21 Pilots, 21 Pilots.
He loved 21 Pilots.
But he loved like one song. He wanted to play it over and over and over again. And he was very particular about his music. Like if you said like, "Hey, Herbs, we really need to come back with Fergie," and he'd be like, "Fucking yeah, we're coming back with Fergie." Have you guys heard London Bridge? The fucking song slaps. So I was like, all right, dude. And then he'd love, like when Shooty Babbitt would come on and he would ask him, like, we would come in with "Who's the Mac" from Rakim, and or Guess Who's Back, I think was the name of the song, Guess Who's Back. and he would always ask Shooty Babbitt for a life lesson or a fashion tip, and it was awesome. Um, he loved having Roger Lodge on, who was the host of Blind Date, but also the Angels pre and post host for some reason. So Roger Lodge would come on every week. Yeah, Herbs. I mean, Herbs got everybody on. Herbs loved. Everybody loved Herbs. He, like you said, Steven, he called himself an asshole. But you ask people today, sports writers around the Bay Area, and they're heartbroken because
Yeah.
he was such a big personality in clubhouses. Um, I think of when we had him on, he talked about how a lot of at the time the beat writers for the A's didn't really like him because he was so close to Zito, Mulder, and Hudson, and he wanted to be close with the players, and the sports writers really wanted to separate themselves. And the only guy that really gave Herbs like advice was Pedro Gomez, and it's just kind of eerie thinking about that today. Where we lost Pedro a few years ago, and we lose Herbs today. I'll never forget him, his goofy personality. Like you said, Steven, he loved to bounce around the chair.
Yeah.
He, uh, you know, he wanted to piss off A's fans every week, going Derek Barton, Derek Barton, Derek Barton, Derek Barton. He was just unique, and he was caring, and this is the hardest part about today. He loved his children, his two girls, and yeah. Mm. This just today's tough.
Yeah. No, it stinks, man. It was very sudden, just out of nowhere, and then you get the outpouring of love and everyone who's talked about talked about him through social media, all the retweets, all the quotes and everything. It was I read through quite a lot of that today. So
Yeah,
it's tough, man, and wish we could have had him on again. I'd be very curious to hear what his opinion would be on this A's move, them going to Vegas, John Fisher going on some media thing right now, being
I'll get
asked
to that later.
the most softball questions ever. Like I would have loved to pick Herb's brain on that, because I'm sure he had very, very strong opinions, much stronger than the usual stuff. He wasn't big on he loved to talk, about baseball game by game. But I also think that if he had a chance to rip A's ownership and what they're doing right now, I think he would have absolutely done that.
Most definitely. I was listening to a little bit when we had him on last time today, and I think we did like a good for ball, bad for ball, and I asked him straight up, the A's staying in Oakland, and he was like, it's good for ball. It has to be that way. He loved the A's. He worked for the Giants for a little while doing the pre and post, but when I think of Michael Urban, I think of the A's, and that's why I'm wearing this hat today, and I'm rocking the 2002 shirt. But you best believe many people tried to copy. No one could touch Michael Urban's impression of Bruce Bochy. He had the best, hands down the best.
Yeah.
So for the podcast version of this, I know we're on live right now, but the podcast version of this, we will play a little bit of our interview with Michael Urban to end the show, and I'll tell a little story of Michael Urban at the end, one of my favorites that we still quote today amongst the 95.7 The Game people that, whether you worked there or still work there, it's a classic quote that we still quote to this day. But RIP to Herbs, and he loved our show. He gave us props, and I think that he would want us to keep doing it. So I think we're just going to go right on in, but we're thinking about you today, Herbs. We love you.
Yep.
Should we do just your headlines, man?
Get right into it.
Let's do it.
All right, I need to play this crappy royalty-free music. We need to get something different. I think we can. We should get different music until we're told not to play this or whatever we choose.
All right.
We'll go with that.
You just want to play that Hard Knocks music that we have stashed away in there?
No, that's all good. All right, what do we got here? All right, so we'll start with a little NFL. We're going with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if you saw this. But defensive end Sam Williams was arrested earlier this week for carrying a Glock, and he also had possession of weed. It was more for THC.
Boy, I can't wait to hear you make a joke out of this.
Well, I'm not really.
Oh, okay.
You'll see. But he was pulled over for speeding, 71 miles per hour in a 45 zone. Well, he was also arrested in January for reckless driving. He totaled his Corvette going 98 miles per hour. And owner Jerry Jones responded by saying, "Yeah, he's maturing." And that's just it. There's no joke. There's no joke. There's nothing. That's just the facts. That's exactly what Jerry Jones said in his response. He goes, "Wait a second. He went down from 98 to 66 miles an hour. That's a 34 mile an hour difference. He's getting a lot better." Well, first off, Jerry, it's 32. It's not 34. And this all happened within the span of a year. So not great for their defensive end, but also Cowboys are back. Jerry Jones
from the 90s?
back. Jerry Jones is back. Just letting anything happen.
I'll tell you what, I'm more concerned about Brandon Cooks flying a helicopter above the stadium before a game. Or a plane, whatever it was.
It was a plane.
It was a plane?
Yeah, it was a plane. It was a plane. All right, from football to football, Lionel Messi led Inter Miami to the League's Cup title last week. And
Jesus.
He led them through the semifinal of the U.S. Open Cup.
How long's the season?
They are 8-0 since he arrived. And when asked what it means to accomplish this, the League's Cup, the U.S. Open Cup final, Messi responded saying, "I have no clue what those are."
That's a dude that just dominates. It doesn't give a shit about anything else.
That's what I was thinking about, because it's great what he's doing. He's just toying with everyone, but when he held up the League's Cup, I was thinking to myself, because they do that thing in soccer. They get on the stage and, they all, they do that. I was just like, he has no idea what he's celebrating right now. He doesn't know what the League's Cup is. If he did, then he just learned about it. But yeah, these are the two mid-season tournaments that happen in the middle of Major League Soccer. The League's Cup is one that actually runs for like a month straight. The U.S. Open Cup, you'd hate it. The U.S. Open Cup, they run like one match per month.
Oh, why?
Yeah, it's been going on since like May.
Yeah.
So they run like one match then they do another one, and then they just continue it periodically, monthly. So now he's on to the final. So
basically he's pulling a Jokic. Like, he's dominating in this, and he's like, "I just want to go home. I just want to go to Publix."
I don't know if that's I don't think that's the case, because he actually seems to love soccer, and I got to give him credit. He's not treating this like he's too big for it. Like Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, in Saudi Arabia, he's just trying to crap on Messi as much as he can. And he's like saying, "I'm the one that's bringing all these players over here, blah, blah, blah." Messi just looks like he's having a great time. And so furthering my conclusion that Messi is the GOAT, Penaldo is not.
All right then.
What's the last one? Oh, Dylan Brooks said he had LeBron James right where he wanted him in the playoffs. Overall, LeBron scored 52 points on 66% shooting when matched up with Brooks. Dylan Brooks is officially Sandy Lyle from Along Came Polly. Dude, I just figured out how to cover this guy right here. Sticks his arm out. Oh.
Rain dance.
Rain dance. That was my favorite part. Favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes of all time. But yeah, Dylan Brooks just continues to be delusional. Yeah,
I agree. Do you know who he was supposed to play that role in Along Came Polly?
The actor?
Yes.
Besides Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yes, the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Who?
Jack Black, Jables.
Damn, that would have been good.
It would have been good, but it's like, Jack Black's busy doing something else. Let's get this Academy Award-winning actor instead.
Versatile.
Yes,
versatile.
Very versatile.
He could
do.
He
had to leave. I gotta leave right now.
When he's sitting in the elevator, everyone's really quiet. He's like, "Oh man, I'm so friggin' horny."
It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
And then the last one,
Alec Baldwin, underrated in that.
Oh, good things. Last one,
good mazel, good mazel,
good mazel, mazel. Last one, Sam Darnold named the backup quarterback. Trey Lance the number 3. And now an all-out civil war is breaking down with 49ers fans. You're either with Kyle Shanahan or you're against him.
Well, it happened at the game last week, and didn't you see that fight that broke out?
Yeah, I wondered if that was anybody talking
It was
crap about Trey Lance.
it was Trey fans versus Sam Darnold fans.
Yeah. God.
Let's get to that
I had
because
by the way, I had
oh, go ahead.
Jesse's uncle or uncle? It's your uncle. Yeah, her uncle was in the I think he was like 3 rows up or something of that with that fight. He was
Oh,
at the
really?
game. Yeah, he was like 3 rows up on that. And he said he didn't even like notice what caused it. It kind of just started happening, but he also could tell that the guy in the white shirt, the guy whose mouth was bleeding after, yeah, he could tell that he was on something or, a little too much of the drank, whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, Jesus, it's a preseason game. Let's relax, everybody. And not that you should fight a regular season's games either, but it's Civil War. It's fans on fans. It's I guarantee you. I can't guarantee you, but the obvious thing is it's a Trey and Sam Darnold fight. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
and you've seen it on social media since this thing has become official. So, um, and somehow KBR got in the middle of it. I'll explain. So it's official. We all assumed this was going to happen. Yesterday, Sam Darnold, reported by Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, Sam Darnold officially has won the backup quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers, leaving Trey Lance, we assume, to be the third string quarterback, although Kyle didn't confirm if it was third string or fourth string. So, well, let's get our reactions on that, first of all, and then I'll get to the whole story of what happened yesterday at the KBR studios when we prepared for this Kyle Shanahan interview. So, your reaction, Steven. Sam Darnold, named the number 2, not surprising at all, right?
No, this is what it was going to be all along. Like, even since they signed him, things felt off ever since the combine when, all these reports were coming out. You can deny, but these reports surfaced from somewhere. Someone had some sort of inkling that a potential trade was going to happen. And then you add Sam Darnold, where Darnold was wanted by Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan has given him nonstop praise. He's raved about Darnold. And then he comes in. This was expected. And then, I think Lance did maybe have a shot to change their minds. Maybe, but I don't know if he did through that preseason showing and through training camp, whatever it is. So, yes, all in all, I expected that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised given, the play in the preseason. And I think you and I kind of thought this was going to happen when the signing became official. And we were like, well, Sam Darnold's closer to Brock Purdy. We all think Brock Purdy's winning the job. And I keep going back to what I've always said. I know I sound like a broken record, but Kyle did not want Trey Lance. And
you don't think so?
I do not. I do not.
Because something I've seen a lot is we all know that Kyle was the one who pulled the string on Trey Lance to expand his offense. So this is his fault ultimately.
We could talk about whose fault it is, but at the end of the day, they just found a quarterback that works better than what they drafted. And I know that they gave up a lot of capital for him, but it'd be one thing if they were forcing Trey down everyone's throats just because they drafted him, and they brought back Jimmy every year because they were uncomfortable. But they found a rookie quarterback. That's what they wanted. That's what Kyle keeps talking about. It was important for us to have a rookie quarterback, be on our roster given our salary cap situation. And they found one in Brock. I kind of relate this to, it's not the same situation, but it's kind of like when the Patriots signed Drew Bledsoe to a huge contract, and then he got hurt. And then Tom Brady came in, and they won the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, well, shit. We spent a lot of money, spent a lot of draft picks on something that we thought we had in a proven commodity, and it turns out we don't. And now we're going with something that's unconventional, but we trust it more. That's what I think is going on here. I think that Brock just has a better grasp of what Kyle wants to do. And I think that Kyle eventually got on board with the Trey Lance pick. He had to because he has final say as head coach. But
I think, at the time, if you remember, there was a lot of rumors about him wanting Mac Jones, and I really believe that he wanted Mac Jones. And in the end, they went with Trey. And we all saw it last year. He struggled in that Chicago game, and they were willing to take their lumps a little bit with the quarterback position for the first couple of weeks. And you best believe that if Trey was struggling and that defense was lights out, they were going to bench him for Jimmy. And just turned out to be that Trey got hurt. And I don't like this whole mentality of the organization failed, they fucked up in drafting Trey, they, you know, they screwed him on his development. I think that's a terrible narrative. I think there's a lot of people in the Bay Area media that have kind of divided the fan base and believe something that they don't believe, in the sense that it's got to be Trey Lance. Trey has to win this job. Kyle fucked everything up. No. In the end, it just didn't work. The same way that James Wiseman didn't work with Steve Kerr. The same thing that maybe will happen with Joey Bart one day with Farhan. In the end, if they win the Super Bowl this year, is anyone giving a shit if Trey Lance is traded? No. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is that, yes, they did trade a lot to get him. No doubt. But you struck luck in finding Brock Purdy. And they're banking on this guy. And I'm hesitant about his success going forward, too. I think that he'll be fine, but I don't know if fine's enough to win in this league anymore.
Yeah.
But that being said, I like him a lot better than Trey Lance.
So I think that the teams with all the players that you mentioned aren't at fault at all. Just think about it in baseball. A rookie drafted early, called up prematurely because Buster Posey ends up retiring, surprisingly, out of nowhere. And you need to have someone else to step in. And that person is that rookie when he just clearly wasn't ready yet. That sent him back. That set him back quite a few. Like just being called up that season. Like that year just was not good for Joey Bart. And since maybe he's just not a major league type of player, James Wiseman barely played in college, had his whole thing with the University of Memphis, started out with COVID, the training camp. Then he tested positive for COVID, couldn't work with the team. And then he ends up getting hurt in the middle of a season too. Like when you practice, you don't have much time to learn. Like that's the thing, is you don't have much time to learn how to develop within a system. Like practice isn't meant for that. Practice is meant for staying in shape and then running a few plays and how they're going to match up against their next opponent. They don't have time to teach any of these guys during the season. It's not like that unless you're maybe a rebuilding team, but the Warriors weren't in that spot. It just wasn't going to work with Wiseman. And then with Lance, think about it for any rookie quarterback. Guy comes in with barely any college snaps. Take the college snaps out of it. Comes in, hurts his finger in the preseason, was forced to play in that game against the Texans because Garoppolo was hurt, even though he was still reworking his finger. Then that following offseason, he has to rework his grip. He has to rework everything. Can't spend it with the team because he's busy with the quarterback's coach trying to work on an entirely new motion because he hurt his finger. And then he ends up hurting his ankle in week 2. And we could argue till we're blue in the face about Kyle Shanahan and him running the football too much, whatever you want to talk about. But with all of these guys, like the progress that was made early, the development stages, like all of it had everything had some sort of speed bump to it. So I don't know. I think that I think it's not the team's fault. It's not the player's fault. The circumstances just stink. Although the team, this draft is not going to look good on their resume if you traded up that much to get him, and you missed out on a few players here and there, whatever. But I don't blame anybody in this situation. It's just unforeseen circumstance. Oh yeah, and by the way, Mr. Irrelevant came in and just lit up the NFL world. So
yeah,
there's that other factor.
Well, does anybody think they made the wrong move? Is there anyone out there that actually believes Trey Lance deserved to be the second string quarterback?
Oh, you mean this like the wrong move, not going back to the draft.
Well, think about it. At the time, they lost that 2020 season. They went 6-10, and it was clear that that was the offseason that Matthew Stafford got traded to the Rams. And I think they felt compelled that they had to compete with that and getting a quarterback of their own that could elevate their offense. And they kind of realized we don't need to do that. They swept the Rams. They haven't lost to the Rams, excluding the NFC Championship game, for a long time. They can get by with their defense. Just a matter of, I think what compelled Kyle to make that move was when they were kicked out of Santa Clara that season. They went down to Arizona to play the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And he saw an elite quarterback, and he was like, I need something like that to compete in this league. You know, Jimmy was hurt that season. They were going back and forth between Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard. They won some games here or there with both those guys. They got a shit ton of injuries, but they wanted to improve the quarterback position. They struck it on Stafford. They were trying to get Sam Darnold. The Jets took their sweet-ass time and then traded him a couple of weeks before the draft to Carolina. They were in on Deshaun Watson, and everything came out with Deshaun Watson. Then they had to make a move in the draft, and they traded up to 3 because they could get the best quarterback available after Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. And they had their pick from Justin Fields to Mac Jones to Trey Lance. And given the circumstances, they did make the right move at getting Trey Lance. But things happen. He got hurt. You found Brock Purdy. It's a diamond in the rough situation. I don't think that anything really went wrong for them in the sense that you couldn't develop Trey, but that's just football sometimes. Like, this team was ready to roll, and they thought that they could do the Patrick Mahomes thing and develop him while they still had a good team. And the truth is that they didn't have time to do that shit. They had to start winning. So while everyone might be upset and they feel duped because certain people told them that Trey Lance would be the savior, it's not going to happen. So what do you think about Trey's future? Because we'll dissect what Kyle Shanahan said to Tolbert and Copes, but when you hear the news that Trey Lance is not in attendance at practice yesterday, and we get the news that he's been not given the second string quarterback position, and then everyone is, Diana Rossini claims that all offseason they've been trying to trade him. Minnesota is in the mix. And then Kyle told us, and I don't know if I believe this, the expectation is Trey Lance is going to play tomorrow. Now, if you are trying to trade him, why would you play him tomorrow? Because at this point, I think you've seen enough. I don't think he could do anything tomorrow to really raise his draft stock or his trade stock. I am skeptical that Trey Lance will actually play tomorrow. But what do you think about his future, Steven?
Well, why wouldn't it raise his draft stock, though, if he does play?
His trade stock? Because
I think it would. Like, if
just playing in the fourth quarter, if it's the same thing as last week, then what's really going to raise it?
Just putting together consistent games where, I don't know, if he plays like he did last week and throws for 173 yards in the fourth quarter, I think someone will be willing to look at that. Maybe it's not much. You know what I mean? I like, oh, wow, Ernie, can't raise it much. Yeah, maybe not. But
I don't think so. I from last week to this week, playing in the fourth quarter, because he will not start the game tomorrow if he plays.
Yeah.
I don't think he can do much to raise his trade stock. I think that it's at the most a fourth-round pick. And I think that at this point, you get what you can. But also, I've heard John Lynch say a lot today when he was on with Murph and Mac, that the most likely scenario is he stays on the team and he's just the emergency third-string quarterback. Now, I think even that's up for debate. I think that they don't want to say it right now, but we're going to see a lot of Brandon Allen tomorrow. And if he plays well, there's a possibility that they just want him to be the third-string quarterback and the emergency quarterback, which would really hurt Trey's, value for a trade.
Yeah.
So at this point, though, I would say the best opportunity for Trey is to go somewhere else. And thank you, Ernie. Yes, Marcus and Mac. Marcus Boucher was filling in. I think that Had to clarify. Thank you. But I think that well, no, because Marcus asked good questions, and I'll get to it. But like Trey, what's the best opportunity for Trey at this point? Is there a team that's going to trade for him and make him the second string quarterback? Or is any team that going to trade for him be like, well, we see the same situation. We don't think he's ready to play. If we trade him to the Vikings, we like Nick Mullins a lot better. So we'll have him be the third string quarterback. Like I think it's interesting today. Marcus Boucher asked John Lynch, did Trey Lance's camp or his agent or anybody ask for a trade? And John Lynch did not answer the question. He just said, hey, listen, we're happy that Trey's here. He's back at practice today, and he's going to play tomorrow.
Sidestepped it, huh?
Yep, sidestepped it hard.
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical of this whole thing, really. I want to be the least bit surprised come Monday or Tuesday that the Vikings figure out their backup situation. Is in the best interest of them to roll into the season with Kirk Cousins as their main guy and then try to go for the future with Trey Lance.
Yeah. I see that as a real possibility. I don't know for a fact if that's going to happen, but you telling me that with the Lynch quote, that makes a lot of sense. That they probably did ask for a trade, but I think it's in his best interest. Like I think
best interest to stay or go?
To go. Like, I think any quarterback would be lucky to play in Kyle Shanahan's system, but the key word there is play. Yeah. Like Trey would not play in that system. I think he could be a very good quarterback. And I was seeing an article from Jim Trotter earlier today where he said that the NFL needs a developmental league, kind of like an NBA G League or not the minor leagues for baseball necessarily, but I guess AAA. And I kind of agree with that, but I think where a quarterback can really develop is with teams who are rebuilding. There's those types of teams every year. I think the Buccaneers are right there. The Vikings, obviously, with Kirk Cousins on the last year of his contract, I think that works. I think also in a Kevin O'Connell ran system, I think that'd be pretty good over there in Minnesota for him. I think Lance needs somewhere to, and plus that's his hometown. Minnesota's his hometown. Why not go play somewhere where you're playing in front of family, you're familiar with it, probably grew up a Vikings fan. I don't know that for a fact, but he probably did. Probably a Timberwolves fan too. Bet you he likes Kevin Garnett. But I don't know, man. Like I think it's not going to work with the Niners. And Darnold, I think, has proven that even with just this early in training camp that even though he's mistake prone, I understand all of that. He seems to be the type of backup quarterback that's like the prototypical one, the one who's maybe not as flashy and talented as the starter, but can keep the team afloat when they need it, as opposed to Lance. He really, right now, he seems to be like a real boomer bust guy. Yeah. Like you can either get something really good or really bad and nothing in the middle. And unfortunately, that's what you need right now with a backup quarterback is something in the middle. And I'm kind of tired of using Darnold's time with the Jets as I don't know, what would you call it? Like the litmus test for his career, like the seeing ghost stuff. I think I saw someone post a game log from his second year with the Jets where he was just throwing interception after interception. But go back to his time towards the end with the Jets and then also with the Panthers. He's been serviceable enough. He's also been a victim of bad circumstance too. Yeah. The dumpster fire, that's the Jets. Thank you, AJ Cruz, the barometer. And you also have another message that I want to get to too. The litmus test.
It's pronounced thermometer.
The litmus test. I'm an idiot. But I think Darnold's proven right now that he's way more serviceable as a backup, which is what they need. And I don't know if I don't know if Purdy's going to give him a chance to start there. Purdy's thrown a lot of interceptions in camp. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be more of those coming up, but that's also just practice. So who cares? It's just, we always talk about with Lance that you can't judge anything based off of these first two seasons, especially with the small sample size. Even though it was a larger sample size for Darnold, I also think you can't judge him based on those two seasons. And that seeing ghost comment, for lack of a better word, haunted him for the rest of his career.
Spooked him.
It did, because everyone brings that up, seeing
Yeah.
ghosts. And then AJ Cruz also talking about Lance playing in this one Friday. Lance seemingly has a foot out the door, may as well give him snaps that aren't going to affect the team. This way, Shanahan can also point to a poor performance as proof that he made a right decision.
Yeah, but you don't want a bad performance right before you're going to trade him too.
Yeah.
Let me just say about Sam Darnold. I think that he's going to have a resurrection in his career being in Kyle Shanahan's system. I don't think he's going to take Brock Purdy's job. There could be a day where Brock Purdy struggles or gets injured, and I think that this scheme is more conducive to his talents. And I think that, he had guys like Adam Gase and who was the quarter who's the guy that just got fired a year ago with the Panthers? Head coach.
Oh gosh.
Matt Rule.
Matt Rule. Thank you.
I think that this will help Sam Darnold, and I think they made the right decision. He looks comfortable in this offense. Now, did he light it up in preseason? No. But he's good as the backup, and I can't rely on Trey right now, and I don't think Kyle can either. So the events that happened yesterday, it appears that, well, let's go back a couple of days. So Kyle spoke to the media on Monday, and Larry Krueger asked him a question about when would they announce a backup quarterback. And Kyle said, we're not going to do it this week. Well, it'll change week after week. We'll do it sometime before we play Pittsburgh. And then the next day, Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport report that Sam Darnold has been named the backup quarterback. And I think at that point, it was just in the best interest, just because it's clear. Like, it's pretty clear. Like, I know people are like, well, he played well last week. Trey played fine, but nothing to elevate his position. So they told Trey in the morning, this is the deal. Sam's going to be the backup. And they came to the decision that Trey was not going to practice. He was going to get his head straight and go home. Do I think that Trey Lance and his agent leaked that information to Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport? Yes, I do. And I think it's a way for them to get him out of San Francisco if there's a better option for him to play. That's all contingent on a team making him the second string quarterback. If Minnesota is like, we like Nick Mullins more than Trey Lance, then he's not going there. But that could happen. That very well could happen. Hell, if you're the Niners, you let Brandon Allen go to Cincinnati back to back up Joe Burrow because of what's going on with his calf. You tell Minnesota, hey, we want our guy back, Nick Mullins back as the third string quarterback, emergency quarterback, and we'll send you Trey. Now there have to be some draft pick compensation in there because Nick Mullins for Trey Lance, people would go crazy.
Right.
But then came the KNBR interview.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you what happened yesterday.
Ooh.
I knew yesterday that we were going to tape with Kyle no matter what. And the plan was, because of the Giants game, we were going to play it on Thursday, today. Just because of time, restraints. If the game went long, which it fucking did, and I'll tell you about that. But once the news broke that they were going with Sam Darnold, I was like, shit, what do we do here? Because we didn't promote it at all, and we're in the middle of a Giants game. How do we get the word out that we're having Kyle on? So I came up with the idea, let's play a snippet of it during the show. We'll play the whole thing tomorrow. Then I was like, there's no way we can sit on this today. We got to play this today. Because I looked at the media schedule for the 49ers, and the media schedule since their last preseason game said that Kyle was not going to speak until after the game on Friday. So then me, Copes, and Tom, and our board op, Tim Webb, all came together and said, we got to play this today. So we decided that we were going to record it in the afternoon, and we recorded it right after Kyle got off the practice field. And we took the best bite of him talking about Trey Lance's future, and we played that on our digital platform. And then we were waiting for the Giants game to end. And Steven has seen me when I've gotten really angry. Goddamn. As soon as Bryce Harper hit that home run to tie the game to go in the extras, you should have seen me.
Was
I
there
was
broken glass? Was
might as well have been. I was sitting in the bullpen of KMBR Studios, just going fuck, and I was walking around pacing. And once once the Phillies didn't get an extra run to end the game, I punched something so fucking hard, and I was mad. And
wow, you're back.
yeah, and Copes had to come over and be like, calm down, calm
Oh,
down.
you're back. Hell yeah. You were getting soft.
Oh,
Good.
really?
Yeah.
Need to go back to my Raider day watching.
Yeah.
My Raider watching days. Luckily, the game ended around 4:50, and but God, I was getting nervous because we get the radio call in the studio faster than the TV call.
Right.
And when John Miller goes, there's a fly ball coming out to Wayne Meckler, and oh, he's bobbling it. He may not have it. I was like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. He caught it. Game ends, and finally we're gonna get to the interview.
Yeah.
And of course, we got to go through Giants post game. And God, I love me some John Miller, but you best believe I was like, come on, get to these highlights faster, John. Jesus. But we got to the interview about 5:15, and Tom said it best. He was like, sports happen sometimes, but we got the interview right now. We're going to play it. And we played it. And then we had Matt Miyoko come on afterwards. And I was not aware of this, but apparently we could tell in Matt's tone, and we love Matt Miyoko, but there was a little slight anger with the 49er writers that we got this exclusive interview and Kyle did not speak to the media when this announcement was made. I don't think anyone's mad at us. No, I love Matt Miyoko. I love Cam Inman. I love Matt Barrows, David Lombardi, Nick Wagoner. They all do a great job. But I think that they were just frustrated that Kyle did not speak when this announcement was made. And Kyle gave us the exclusive. And I understand that. It was never going to happen where Kyle was going to speak. This wasn't a 49er announcement. This was Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero taking the story into their own hands and announcing it to the world. And then once it became official, Kyle just spoke to us and admitted to it. He could easily just said, I'm not talking about that, guys, and downplayed the whole thing. But he was willing to talk about it. So we went with it. And I understand that the Niners beat writers are a little upset that as they put it, some people did. Kyle and John went to run and hide and not talk about the situation. And they will. They will talk about this tomorrow after the game. I guarantee you, Kyle will talk to the media and he will take all the questions about it. But it's interesting. It's interesting that, the beat writers are like, it seemed to be like that became more of the story than the quarterback thing. Like the story is that, Trey Lance's future is up in the air and Sam Darnold's the number 2. But now we have a whole thing of, well, Kyle and John don't want to talk about this, which I find a little interesting.
What about till he's traded too? I mean, you're going to answer questions about this, but then once, if it happens, if he's traded, not saying it sounds like it's inevitable, but also who knows? Maybe they really might keep him on as a third quarterback if they don't find anyone that's a suitable trade partner. And who knows? Maybe Trey Lance will go on a little James Harden tour and call them a liar and say they'll never play to an organization they're a part of, and they get fined $100,000.
I doubt that.
Damn, that whole saga is crazy, man.
Oh, it's stupid at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's what the Harden thing, or this thing.
No, Harden. Harden is
yeah.
Harden. Getting fined $100,000.
Yeah,
good. Like, don't stop with the shit. Your act is tired. But anyway,
right.
He might be my Jackass of the week. We'll wait for that later.
Also, one thing with this Lance thing, with how this plays into the contracts too. I mean, this upcoming year, they got some rookies, or not some rookies. They got some guys towards the end of their rookie contracts who are expected to ball out. Javon Kinlaw hasn't stood out as much in preseason as I think a lot of people hoped. They said he entered training camp in the best shape of his life, looking skinny, looking thin, thin-ish, because Javon Kinlaw is like that dude stands out. Literally, he's just massive human being. But they declined his player option. He could be in line for something new relatively soon here. If Brandon Ayuk has another standout season, like they already exercised that 5th-year option, but I think that he'd probably be in line for some sort of long-term contract. I think having Lance off the team, like this gives them a little more financial flexibility as they still have a couple of years with Brock Purdy. And but then also if Lance were to ball out and were due a contract, who knows? The Niners probably would have won a Super Bowl by now if they were willing to pay him as much. But this gives them the flexibility, I think, to keep this roster intact because we keep straying away as we're talking about the backup quarterbacks. We keep straying away from what actually matters, which is this starting 22 that the Niners have is one of the best in football. And when Christian McCaffrey is back, Deebo Samuel looking as in shape as he's ever looked, George Kittle, you haven't seen him play forever, but you know what? That doesn't matter because it's George Kittle. Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, do I have to go down the list? It feels like you could go down the list every, the offensive line, sure, whatever. But like this starting 11 that they have on offense is going to be lethal this year. And also the Bosa thing. I look, I'll just say this about Bosa. I don't think there's anything to worry about unless he's not signed by week 1. I think they have a whole nother week to work this out. And I think they can get a deal done last second. I know what Lynch said. He kind of was really honest about everything with Bosa. He said he doesn't like it. But also he didn't say, well, we're not going to get a deal done. He's going to go elsewhere. We're going to look for a trade. No, he didn't say anything like that. I think a deal is going to get done there. So you're going to be pretty well in line for potentially another NFC championship and maybe a Super Bowl this year. So Niners will be just fine regardless of what happens to Trey Lance.
I agree. And I think the whole Bosa thing will come to an end pretty quickly here. I think that something should happen by next week. If not, maybe the week after. If they have to go 1 week, like I remember when Aaron Donald was holding out, I want to say the same year that Khalil Mack was doing it. Maybe he was doing it a year before. But there was a game that Aaron Donald had to miss because he held out a little too close to the opener, and they held him out the first game. Then he came back. If the Niners have to go to Pittsburgh without Nick Bosa, they'll be okay. They don't want to do that because they would love to have him. But, as time goes on, it's getting harder for him to, get ready for the season. But I think they'll be fine. If something happens next week, I think at the end of the day, they just got to bite the bullet and make him the highest paid defensive player in football. That's just what it is, making $32 million a year. And then there will be a ripple effect of what happens with Chris Jones, which we'll get to a little bit here. But just to end with the 49ers real quick about the interview with Kyle Shanahan. I saw a lot of people criticize it saying that, it's pre-produced. Kyle wanted to do a pre-recorded interview. It just worked out that way. Kyle is on with us weekly, and most of the time we do record with him. No questions are brought up by the PR staff. Everything that was asked was 100% organic from Tom Tolbert and Adam Copeland. No, I know some people on Twitter have criticized the questions that were asked. It was all genuine and from the hosts. Nothing was manufactured by Niners PR. I can 100% guarantee you that.
Yeah, well, it's bound to happen this whole thing, everyone's coming down Kyle Shanahan's road, and I get it. There's a certain arrogance that he has to him, and this whole thing with Trey. How much, I wonder, and I don't really know this, but how much do head coaches play the role in developing a quarterback, like truly their development? Because like if I'm judging from watching Hard Knocks or anything like that, you see how much work they do with the quarterbacks coaches and in those meeting rooms. And it's not always with the head coach. The head coach is dealing with a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Like how much of the onus is on the head coach to actually develop a quarterback as opposed to drawing up the right plays to put him in a position to succeed,
Well, when you're the offensive coach, like when you're a play calling coach, people kind of align you with that. But there's so much that they got to do. Like I remember Kyle in the first couple of seasons struggled with game management and challenges just because he was so focused on play calling. And that's kind of like people don't think about the other, like when people do the debate shows and shit, everyone just talks about the alliance of the quarterback and head coach when you are an offensive minded head coach. But in reality, you got an offensive coordinator, you got a quarterback coach. Like, yes, Steven, like you put it perfectly. Like the way that, Aaron Rodgers is talking to multiple people on the staff. Brian Greasy probably, had a hand in this and saying, I think we're better off with Sam. Like,
You know, and if you bring up something great, a good point too. We didn't really mention this, but as far as Trey's development, you also had a Jimmy Garoppolo who didn't enjoy his time in his last year with the 49ers and wasn't in a place like he may have, played it cool. Jimmy's always Jimmy. Like everybody loves him, but maybe he didn't give as much as he could have as far as helping Trey develop into the quarterback that he needed to be.
but is that on him?
Maybe. No, it's not necessarily, but that's the only veteran that you can point to that Trey's worked with so far in his career. Maybe he does need another thing like Zach Wilson, and that's why working with Kirk Cousins could be a good thing for him because Kirk, I think, would take him right under his wing, and then
Kirko Thuggins,
and then and then after their win, they could go outside and have a bonfire with his son Coop.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he would be back home. What is this shit now?
What?
Oh, YouTube TV's asking me for my favorite college football. No, I'm not gonna stop that. I do. Do you like how YouTube TV's gotten like the multi-grid going with you can watch like multiple sports at once now going?
Oh, they're bringing it.
They're stepping their game up. I mean, I know a lot of people are upset with the Sunday ticket price, but maybe worth it. They're doing a good job.
I think they listened to Just Your Opinion, man, when we clamored for this during March Madness and said, why can't we do this across multiple sports?
We clamored, but we also shit talked YouTube TV when the Eastern Conference Finals didn't come through that one night.
Well, that's deserving. It didn't play.
Exactly. It was bullshit.
There's nothing on. We missed it.
We will, we'll get to the bottom of this as time goes on with the 49ers quarterback saga, but just quick thought, Steven. Do you think Trey Lance plays tomorrow?
I do. I don't know for how long, but I do.
I don't think he's getting traded tomorrow. If he does play, it's minimal. And it's in situations they put him in to not get him hurt. Basically, what will happen with Aaron Rodgers on Saturday. There's no chance in hell. They're putting that out there, so, Aaron Rodgers is a bigger deal, but they don't want any possibility of getting value for Trey to go down the drain. So we will see. I think that we see more Brandon Allen than Trey Lance.
You think Herbert's going to play?
No, I do not.
Yeah.
While
who's their backup?
Easton Stick.
Okay. Right. The best baseball name ever for a football guy. Yeah.
That's true. Actually. He sounds like a pitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys are playing this preseason starters, but I think the Chargers are like, we're not fucking around with Justin Herbert. That guy's the franchise.
Yeah, we just paid him. We're not going to have him go through a Joe Burrow thing.
Just some quick thoughts on some other NFL topics. Jonathan Taylor. Initially, I think you were in agreement with me, Steven. I did not think that Jonathan Taylor was going to get traded. I thought that this was all just a attempt by the Indianapolis Colts to tell him you have no market. And I don't want to buy in too much because I fucking hate all these damn Dove Kleiman sites. But now I'm back on it with Jonathan Taylor watch.
Oh, man.
I know. It's sad. But the Miami Dolphins sound like they're close to making this a deal. I don't know. I don't know if I want to get my hopes up or believe this shit. You see the Dolphins as rumors. The Eagles may be in on it. It sounds like he doesn't want to go to the Bears. They gave him an ultimatum, or I guess a deadline, to find a trade partner by Tuesday, but it sounds like Jonathan Taylor has found the trade partner. It's just a matter of if the Colts want to send him to Miami, if they're getting enough value in return. And they got to pay him too. So what do you think is more likely? Trey Lance gets traded over the weekend, or Jonathan Taylor gets traded over the weekend?
God.
Yeah.
Can I say both?
That's a fair answer. Yeah, I think it may happen that both are.
I mean, I think both are extremely likely. Like the Jonathan Taylor thing, that's just full on. Okay, I requested a trade and I'm out of here. Like if I had to give you an answer of which one I think more likely, I think the JT one is more likely because
Miami?
I think some team will be willing to give up way more for him, and they'd find a trade more suitable for him, whatever they'd receive, as opposed to Trey. I don't think it's that much right now. Whatever his value is, I think the 49ers would at least want to recoup a third round pick or something out of that.
That's not happening.
I know it's not happening, but that trade value could go up. Teams, by the time the season rolls around, teams could be way more in need of a quarterback than they are right now.
All right. I mean, yeah, I think there's always quarterback needy teams, and I think that teams that don't think they'll be in the Caleb Williams hunt will look for Trey Lance. But yeah, I think that this Jonathan Taylor move is actually going to happen, and I don't know. Did you hear that they inquired with the Raiders about Josh Jacobs, Miami?
Yeah.
So they passed on Dalvin Cook, it sounds like, but they are all in about trying to get another running back. Devin A-Chain was a guy that they drafted. I mean, I don't know how much faith they have in Tua going forward while he's battling with Ryan Clark over his weight, but it sounds like they want to upgrade the running back position, and Jonathan Taylor would be really good in a Mike McDaniel run scheme, but is it worth it? Like, they're not getting a first round pick, and I don't know if they're getting a second round pick, maybe multiple. I don't know at this point. If they're gonna have to trade and pay him $17 million a year, more than McCaffrey, right before the season starts. It's starting to sound like it's going to happen, but I'll believe it when I see it. I think if I had to answer my own question, I would say Trey Lance is more likely to get traded.
Wow. And do you think so is the Dolphins the only team that's inquiring about him?
No, I read there was just a Thursday night football game that just went down, and the Eagles and Colts have been scrimmaging all week, and they're in the mix as well, apparently. Now, they already got DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, but I guess the rumor is that they're not really high on either of those guys, and they could be a part of the trade package, which would be interesting. For Miami, you probably have to send Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson Jr. back. So I don't know. This all seems crazy to me right before the season to start, with 2 weeks away, and we're drafting on Monday, Steven, in the Tickle My Butthole League, and now we got to figure out if Jonathan Taylor is going to be on the fucking Colts or not.
Oh.
Yeah. Timing may be shitty.
I hate the name of our league so much.
Oh, you love it.
Also, you should auto draft. Your team sucked last year.
So did yours. You know when.
It was okay.
You know why my team sucked last year?
Why?
Because I had the first overall pick. You know who I took?
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So maybe everybody should just avoid him from the get-go. Corey Davis retired, and that's surprising because everybody's been watching Hard Knocks. I think a couple weeks ago he was on Hard Knocks, and he was like, "I can't wait for the season." You figured he'd be an afterthought in this offense. Like, I saw he retired, and I was like, "That's too bad." But okay, like, when I think of the Jets offense, I was thinking of Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and McCole Hardman in the slot. I didn't really see a place for Corey Davis, and there was a chance that he may have gotten cut. So it's sad to hear that he retired and walked away from a Super Bowl team, possibly. But I didn't think that there was going to be a big role for him anyway.
I thought he was going to be so good when he was with the Titans. Like, he was a solid player. Like, no doubt. I mean, he was such an early draft pick. Yeah, I guess it is a shock. What was he, 5th overall?
I forget what he was, but he was supposed to complement AJ Brown pretty well with the Titans.
Yeah, 5th overall in 2017.
Oh no, he got drafted before AJ Brown.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, that was during the Mariota years.
Yeah, it's sad.
28,
career already over. Something must have happened in his personal life, which is sad.
Yeah. By the way, whatever's going on in the group chat right now, the YouTube chat with the Erdies and AJ Cruz is hilarious because it looks like AJ Cruz is going to the game. And he says that he's got his go-go gadget glasses instead of binoculars. I'd love to see what those look like. go-go gadget glasses. That sounds fire. Then what Ernie said, say hi to Jesus. And AJ's like, Jesus Christ gonna be there? Oh man, YouTube.
These guys have fun from the
Love it.
KNBR group chat to this. These guys have a lot of fun.
Oh man.
Real quick, other news. Jerry Jeudy hurt his hamstring today. He's gonna be out for quite some time with the Broncos. And then another AFC West news. When asked, I guess online, whatever, Facebook, whatever site they were on, Chris Jones said that when he'll plan to come back with the Kansas City Chiefs if he doesn't get a contract, week 8, which adds to my belief Chris Jones will not be playing for the Chiefs this year.
Yikes.
Yeah.
You think that puts him back? You think that takes him out of? Do you think it matters? Do you think it takes him out of Super Bowl contention, or are we?
Oh, I will get to that. I'll do
if
a
it
little,
happens.
next time we do a pod. I will do trade speculation stuff of where I think guys are going to go right before the season, and then we'll make our division picks. And I'm hoping we could get a guest on that Labor Day weekend. You and I have been talking about it. Some guy I ran into on the street that you know very well that likes to get crazy. We'll try to get him on.
Oh.
And we'll do our season preview. But if Chris Jones is not on the Chiefs this year, that could be a big fucking deal.
Whoo.
Should we do our just your division preview, man? Whatever the fuck we're calling that thing.
Yes, we will do that. We got the Norths.
The North. So we got to start banging these out faster because by the time we get to the start of the season, we're going to be slow. So let's just do both North divisions right now. AFC North, NFC North. What we like about these teams, what we don't like about these teams. Steven, you start us off. What division you want to do and what team you want to start with?
All right, we'll go with the let's go with the NFC North to start out because the AFC North is to be honest, the AFC North is a little easier to talk about because those teams are so damn good.
Best division of football, in my opinion.
But in the NFC North, we could start with the Vikings.
Yeah.
They're gonna have an
Trey
interesting
Lance's
season.
new team.
They're gonna have an interesting season. Like, I don't know what to expect from them. I don't know if I'm expecting playoffs from the Vikings this year.
I wouldn't think so. I think if I had to say one thing I like the most about this team going into the season is that they fired their defensive coordinator and hired Brian Flores, who should improve that defense. They got rid of Zadarius Smith. They signed Marcus Davenport. They gave an extension, I guess, or just more money to Danielle Hunter this season, but he very well could be traded at the deadline. He's got a 1-year deal. The biggest thing I don't like about this team is that they are having a competitive rebuild. They're trying to not be very good this year. They still could by default with how the division is. But as far as all the talent that they lost, Dalvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, they just got rid of a lot of older guys and guys that have been staples on those teams during the Mike Zimmer years.
Yeah.
But it seems like they want to go for a competitive rebuild, kind of like the Raiders are doing. And I don't know if I really think that that's going to be beneficial for them this season.
Well, my only problem with them, looking at their schedule and the quarterbacks they have to face, and you combine it with their pass defense from last year, they were the second worst team in the league in terms of pass defense, and they didn't do anything to shore up that secondary except draft a cornerback in the 3rd round. They could have drafted someone we talked about on the last pod with the NFC East preview. They could have drafted Deontay Banks, but they didn't in the 1st round. Instead, they took the wide receiver Jordan Addison, who unfortunately is dealing with some legal troubles himself already to start the season. And if you look at the schedule to start, the quarterbacks that they have to face, this is going from week 1 all the way through November. They got well, actually, the Buccaneers isn't bad. After the Buccaneers, then we'll go on from there. But you got Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, then you got Bryce Young, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, then you got the Niners, then you got the Packers with Jordan Love. Apparently, they found new life with this guy. He's looked really good in preseason, supposedly. I don't know if that's going to transfer to the regular season. But already off the top, you're facing some of the league's best in the first half of the year prior to the bye week. I'm not liking the start of this schedule for the Vikings this year. What I do like, honestly, it's Kirk. I love Kirk Cousins. They got a competitor. They got this dude every year. He does something.
That Netflix doc swayed you.
Yeah, it did. Well, like I mean, I've always been swayed since this mic'd up thing with Kirk. It was a few years ago, but he he like ran up to a bunch of his players and he's telling them, he's like, celebrate, celebrate. We scored a touchdown. We got to celebrate. He's such a weird guy. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah,
So-
but I think everybody loves him now because he's just
And
like a
then-
down to earth dad.
And then Justin Jefferson, when you have a guy just who's
Yeah.
out for blood like Justin Jefferson is, who's out to like, honestly, it doesn't seem like Jefferson's out there to win a Super Bowl. It looks like he's out there to break records.
Yeah.
That seems like it's what he wants to do. Like that seems to be his main goal. Big fan of JJ. And then, Jordan Addison could be good on the other side of him. I don't really know what to expect from the actually, they got TJ Hawkinson at tight end, and he could get a pretty big payday too. It's looking like he's trying to.
Sounds like he wants to break the bank with the tight end market.
So you got players who have individual goals, and even though it might not translate into a Super Bowl, could translate into a pretty dynamic offense.
You very well could. All right, which NFC North team want to go next?
Let's go to the Lions.
Lions got a lot of hype, and they are probably the favorites to win this division for the first time since Steven's birth, 1993.
Wow.
It's crazy. Biggest thing I like about this team is the upgrades they made, and they're coming off a very good end of their season, going 9-8, and getting a sweep of the Packers, ending Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay. They went out and got Emmanuel Mosley from the Niners. They got C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles. They drafted Jamar Gibbs, and they just look better as a team altogether. They probably, as a team, probably look the best in the NFC North on paper. The biggest thing I don't like about this team, they're the Lions. They just have a 1, and it's high expectations for them. This is the first time in probably the Calvin Johnson days that they have expectations. So are they going to live up to them? They're going to start the season opening up the NFL season against the Chiefs. And is it going to be where they're competing with the Super Bowl champions, or are they just getting their ass kicked because they're the same old Lions?
Yeah. There's a complete opposite of the Vikings in terms of what they've done, like you mentioned, with those additions of Mosley on one side. Like, I'm really curious to see how he responds to that injury that he had in Atlanta last year. And I just think that it tends to happen with these edge rushers, but the jump from year 1 to year 2 always seems to be astronomical when it comes to these defensive rookie of the year type players like Aiden Hutchinson. I think this dude's due for like a monster year in his second year with Detroit. And then on top of that, Jared Goff seems to understand that offense and how to run it. He's their leader. Amon-Ra St. Brown, their wide receiver core. They got a couple of more wide receivers too. I think who else do they got? They got David Montgomery, I think, as a running back to replace Jamal Williams. Jahmyr Gibbs was their first round pick. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's another guy. I mean, if there's like the preseason MVP types, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is right up there. What I don't like so much about the Lions is the fact, even though I do like that running back room, letting Jamal Williams go is just a gut punch, man.
Swag Kage.
Yeah. He brought so much personality to that team, but I still think they're going to play real well. And I think they've kind of turned into like the darlings of the NFL amongst just fans in general. I think everyone loves the Lions and wants them to win. So I think that's what they got going for them.
They definitely do. Packers. Biggest thing about them this season that I like is their defense. I think that they have got really good defense, from the pass rush and Rashawn Gary to Preston Smith, who they've had for a long time. They drafted Lucas Van Ness. They got a good secondary. They got arguably one of the best corners of football in Jair Alexander. They're very young on defense, but I think they could be one of the best defensive teams of football. The biggest question mark, obviously, is Aaron Rodgers leaves, and they got a very, very young offense in Jordan Love. And is he going to be the next Hall of Fame quarterback that they have? Most likely not, but we'll see what happens. He's been waiting in the wings for quite some time now, and he's going to get the opportunity to play this season. He's got a very inexperienced receiving core with Romeo Dobbs and the new guy that they drafted, Dustin Jawick or whatever his name is. They also got Christian Watson, who was really good last year with Aaron Rodgers, came into his own a little bit down the stretch, but a lot of question marks for the Packers on offense.
Yeah, the offense, I'm not sure what to make of it. I love Aaron Jones. He's probably going to be the next up on that list of running backs who should get paid but won't because they're running backs. He's still in the middle of a rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken, as of right now, or not a rookie deal rather, but he has a 4-year deal that's super cheap. It's kind of bizarre, but what I like though, you mentioned the defense, like the front seven could be pretty beastly this year, but a front seven isn't going to win you football games. There's so many questions around Jordan Love and what he can do on the offensive side. I think wasn't Bakhtiari hurt for a lot of last year. I think they're going to have him for most of this.
He was.
And then in, outside of the front seven, Jair Alexander is one of the most entertaining players in the league. So I think the Packers, at the very least, I don't know if it's going to translate to wins and maybe a playoff berth in Jordan Love's first year. But I think they're going to be a very watchable team this year compared to last year. Last year, it's like watching, I don't know. It was like watching the Lions watching the Packers last year. What it was like watching the Lions in those previous years. It's just like you didn't feel like they had a chance to win with anything.
Yeah. No, I agree. It'll be interesting to see what happens this season. A lot of people are saying that LaFleur may have a Trey Lance, Brock Purdy situation going down itself because apparently a lot of people like Sam Clifford, the backup quarterback, more than Jordan Love.
Sam Clifford.
Just something to watch out for. Apparently he's been doing a lot better in preseason than Jordan Love.
I remember Romeo Dobbs. Didn't he have that really good game against the Niners? And
he did in the preseason. He had a good touchdown.
It was in the preseason. I remember that. Yeah. That's the only reason I know that name.
Yeah. Finally, in the North, we got the Bears. They traded away their first overall pick and got a bounty of picks and got DJ Moore. That's the biggest thing I like about them this season. Everybody watched that preseason game a couple weeks ago where Justin Fields, 2 screen passes, but DJ Moore showed his speed. He finally has a guy that he can rely on as far as a number 1 receiver, so I think they'll be a good combination. It's just a matter of the biggest thing I don't know if I like about this team is Justin Fields. He is very talented as far as a playmaker and as far as being an athlete and running with his legs. But can he be an elite thrower of the football? That's what I wonder about with this team.
Man, well, he needs to make that big jump, doesn't he? Everyone's expecting that from him. I like the fact that they got Robert Tonyan. I think Robert Tonyan was a nice little pickup for him. And I also think they got a couple of linebackers in Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. And I think that could be a pretty dynamic linebacking duo. But it all hinges on what Fields does. Like it's all based on that. So I think he's going to have the jump that everyone's expecting him to have. I think he could have a Josh Allen like resurgence where he like turns into just one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we feel like we have to respect him as a top 5 type of guy.
Interessante.
I really think so. Like along with DJ Moore, just that offense as a whole, I think is going to be clicking on all cylinders this year. I'm bullish on the Bears.
Okay, all right, I like it. Where do you want to go in the AFC North to start off?
Let's go to the Steelers.
Steelers. Okay. Well, they made a few upgrades in the offseason. They traded for Allen Robinson. They got Quan Alexander, who got fined a shit ton of money for a hit in the preseason. But they really didn't. Yeah, I know. It was ridiculous. They didn't really do anything, though, that I liked in the offseason. I liked them getting Joey Porter Jr. in the draft. They also drafted that tight end from Georgia. What's his name? Big fucking dude. I forget his name. Someone in the chat will remember. But I think the biggest thing that I like about them is just that they're the Steelers. They probably have arguably maybe the best defense that's not the Niners. I think that from all together, from their defensive line to their linebackers to their secondary, they're pretty stacked. They picked up Patrick Peterson to give themselves some veteran presence on the defense, but they got enough at that with Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt. Just good to have in the secondary. They also got Micah Parsons. They're just the Steelers. That's basically the biggest thing I like about them is that they never really have bad seasons. Even a year ago when they're figuring things out with their quarterback situation, they finally have Kenny Pickett play. And they went 9-8. They very well could have made the playoffs, and Mike Tomlin never has had a losing season. So I think that they're going to be a very interesting team this year. The only thing that I worry about is Kenny Pickett's development. And all indications are he looks very good. But is he going to be the type of guy to beat the other quarterbacks in his division? Is he better than a Lamar Jackson? Is he better than a Deshaun Watson? Is he better than a Joe Burrow? Probably not, but maybe he doesn't need to be.
My favorite part about this team is George Pickens. I love him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think Pickens is just a great personality. I was thinking about this the other day because, Shannon Sharp is on First Take now with Stephen A. And there are a couple
Hard pass.
There were a couple of Shannon Sharp videos that popped up of him doing interviews and, one time him making fun of like a kid in speech class. It was pretty messed up. But at the same time,
I've seen that in the
You saw
NFL Films thing.
yeah. But
You have an action figure made out of me.
it had me thinking though, like, we don't have a lot of those kind of quirky out there personalities in football nowadays. I mean, we got like, the Mahomes and the Allens and those guys are kind of the faces of it, but you don't have those dudes who are just super out there. And I think George Pickens absolutely is. And he has talent to back it up. This dude is going to be a dynamic wide receiver. He reminds me a lot of like an AJ Green type. He's tall, he's lanky, he's got speed, and he can high point the ball, he can do whatever. But like with this discussion that we've had throughout these teams, it's going to be dependent on the quarterback and what Kenny Pickett's development looks like. And hey, if you've read anything from Steelers beat writers, who are actually, they're a tough media market. I know we always point to New York, but Pittsburgh is they're going to keep it straight. They're saying that Pickett has looked like every bit the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the future guy. So he needs to make that jump from year 1 to year 2, and from going from preseason MVP, which is like what everyone's kind of labeling him as. That doesn't necessarily translate to the regular season, but it could. Yeah. And just curious to see if it does.
Browns, they went out and got Elijah Moore in a trade, and they picked up Zadarius Smith.
Mm-hmm.
They made some good upgrades. I think that they're going to be a sneaky good team. I think that Elijah Moore is probably their biggest addition just because they need someone to help out Amari Cooper, not be the main focus of the offense as far as a receiving option. Nick Chubb, arguably one of the best running backs in football. David Njoku, they all got they're a very talented team. They just didn't put together last year because Deshaun Watson had his suspension and they were figuring things out with him missing almost 2 years of football. And that's the biggest question mark is Deshaun Watson going to be the guy that he was before all of the things that came out about him, everything that tarnished his reputation that will never go away. That's just one thing that they got to deal with as far as an organization as well, is being the team that overpaid for Deshaun Watson. At the same time, he'll be remembered for something much more terrible than whatever he'll do on the football field.
Yeah, this is just me. I'm not saying that everyone has to think this way, but if we're talking about things we don't like, I don't like Deshaun Watson. Like I'm just uncomfortable watching him on the football field, knowing his reputation. So that's what I don't like about the team. The rest of the offense is good, but you know what I'm going to say, dude, that front four on the Browns with their additions.
Mm-hmm.
They took Dalvin Tomlinson from the Vikings. They got Shelby Harris, who's just a stalwart up the middle. On the other side, they got Myles Garrett. And then you got Zadarius Smith. That front four is going to be terrifying. I think Zadarius Smith is one of the most underrated players in the league. That's going to be a defense to watch. And, as we've seen with the 49ers, for example, that whatever the front four does can have an impact on the front seven, and it could have an impact on the entire defense. If you have a front four as strong as that, could do some pretty damn good things. I think that Browns defense is going to be good with that front four.
Yep, and they got Jim Schwartz to come out of, I guess, retirement. He was with I think the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, so he's going to be their defensive coordinator. It should be better, and I think this will be a make or break season for Kevin Stefanski. They got to make the playoffs or something to keep his job, probably. Ravens, they basically are going to ditch the run-first offense. dealing with the devastating loss they had on Monday Night Football, where they lost their preseason win streak. That's just, I don't know how they survive as a franchise.
I don't respect you if you call that meaningless, Derek.
I was going to ask you if you saw that. John Harbaugh was fucking crazy. Like that. That was nuts.
He pulled out the "you haven't played" card.
Yeah, no, but no one even asked him the question. He just wanted to jump on like the media sucks. Like, well, who was it last year? Did he jump on the sideline reporter during the playoff game?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot
What's
who
her
it
name?
was.
I forget her name.
Yeah.
Michelle Tafoya.
It wasn't Tafoya. I don't think it was Tafoya.
No, she left. I forget. Regardless, I thought that was ridiculous. Anyway, the biggest thing that the Ravens are doing this year is they're going to be a pass first offense. Supposedly, they made the upgrades, go get Odell, overpay for him a little bit. Then they drafted Zay Flowers, and they got their offensive coordinator Tom Munkin, who comes from Georgia, and they're going to spread it out. They're going to make Lamar Jackson be a thrower of the football more than use his legs that he's been so comfortable to do in the past. That's my biggest question mark, though. I like that they're deciding to do this because they need to. At the same time, I don't know if Lamar Jackson is capable of just being a pass first quarterback. They paid him like one, but now he's got to have like a Jalen Hurts type of change in his style of play.
But they gave him the wide receiver core to do it. Like
Yeah,
what I like is how they've just beefed up that core with OBJ and Zay Flowers. But that was also the other thing that I listed that I don't like, because the Ravens, no matter who they have on paper, they always seem to be really sound defensively. Like it's just how Baltimore operates. They're always really good. So I don't have many questions there. But the whole thing with Lamar Jackson in this offseason, and I get why he did what he did, but it just all felt so icky. The whole saga of him trying to get a contract, and it's just this what the team sends out a letter, and then like John Harbaugh's hearing about the letter for the first time at this media day, like all this stuff that doesn't foreshadow anything positive. But I could be totally wrong there, and it's just me looking way too deep into it, and Lamar's just going to play like Lamar does. If they're running away from that run first type of offense, though, I don't know.
It's a big change.
It is.
I'll say the biggest thing I don't like about this team, though, is Jadeveon Clowney is signed, which he's made a lot of money in his career, being more of a name, I guess, than a player, in my opinion. He's wearing number 24. That's disgusting. I don't like that at all.
That's bad. And they also got Rock Ya-Sin on the other side.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Who was not good. But he was not good with the Raiders last year. And also, speaking of, Marlon Humphrey, another great character within the game.
Yes, but he's going to be injured for the first couple of weeks, I
Right.
believe, for the season.
Right.
So that may be something that you got to look for with their defense.
Yep.
Lastly, the Bengals, who have won this division the last 2 years. Biggest addition they made in the offseason is getting Orlando Brown to be the left tackle, which is huge. Steal him away from your biggest foe in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that was huge. One of the biggest moves of the offseason. They're going to move Jonah Williams to right tackle, and then they'll just wait it out with Lyle Collins, who has the Achilles injury. And then, they'll plan for the future. They, made Joe Mixon take a pay cut. He's fine doing that. T. Higgins, this may be the last year that he's on the team because they got to pay Joe Burrow in a couple of weeks here probably. And then they got to pay Jamar Chase. And I don't know how the money's going to go around, but I don't see T. Higgins fitting in with that. Biggest thing that I worry about with this team is simple. When you saw Joe Burrow play in the practice and he clutched his leg, everyone goes to the same image of Kevin Durant having that hamstring injury in the playoff game against the Rockets, then coming back and everyone's like, oh, it was just, it was a calf strain. And then he came back he came back too early, and he was out the whole season with the Achilles tear. And that's, something you worry about with Joe Burrow. He already tore his ACL a couple of seasons and during his rookie year. You just don't want to fuck up this guy's future. he will get paid regardless. But that's the biggest thing I worry about.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any other answer than to worry about. To the one thing to not like is the fact that Joe Burrows was non-contact.
Yeah.
Like he's just rolling out to his right on a simple play. It's it's not like it was anything complicated. It's not like anyone rolled into it. It was a non-contact injury. That type of thing's scary. As far as what I like about the team, it's not really these new additions, but on the edge with Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, and then Logan Wilson up the middle. I know I've been talking about a lot about these defenses, but like that's another defense right there that I think is kind of underrated, or not really underrated. I'd say more overshadowed by the offense and just what they're able to do. Everyone focuses on the offense, but Sam Hubbard is one of the best edge rushers in terms of stopping the run. He prides himself on both stopping the run and getting to the quarterback. And apparently Trey Hendrickson, I didn't know this until I watched the NFL Top 100 this year, but he is a madman apparently, and I like that in an edge rusher. So I like their defense too, but it's all about Joe Burrow's health and the quarterback.
How was that Top 100 this year?
Solid, still getting through it. I haven't really focused
NFL Plus exclusive.
I haven't focused. Well, it's on YouTube now. I haven't.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I haven't focused on the list too much. I was trying to find like my favorite, players as far as personalities. Tristan Wirfs from the Buccaneers, and then Marlon Humphreys was great too. Humphreys, when he was voted in, it was really good.
It's not like the good old days though, where they had Ike Taylor and Gerald McCoy was on every year. He was great. Pat McAfee before he got big.
Yeah, Mike Daniel was really good.
Yeah, Mike Daniel was very good. The underrated one was the guy from the Texans, Craig James.
Yeah. But wasn't he the one that he was like the star of Hard Knocks? That's Charles James.
I'm thinking of the old R&B singer.
Yeah, Charles James. He was like the star of Hard Knocks that year. Damn.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he wanted to play offense, and he was like fast as shit. Yeah,
it's also cool seeing just how I like watching these. I like watching other NFL players talk about what makes everyone so good, and it's like you learn something new, at least one thing new in these top 100. And the one that stood out to me is really random, but it's a pass rush move that Jonathan Allen has with Washington. It's like this little. For a defensive tackle, it's this little, they call it the hump move. And he just basically drives his body into a guard and just pushes them all the way back into a quarterback. It doesn't always result in a sack, but it opens something else up for his other teammates. I don't know. There's a couple of things that stood out to me. And then like also Debo, whenever they're talking about Debo, like they're just like, this dude's a dog. And it's just crazy how he said that he had like an awful season last year. And everyone's like, nah, he's not awful. That's still pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, he looked great in that preseason game. He looked quick, quicker than he's been in quite some time, I would say. Otis Bird, what is the word? Thank you for joining us. Better late than never. Before we get out of here, I mean that's all the divisions. I don't think we're gonna do just your questions, man, tonight because we've gone long enough, and we kind of wanted to focus on herbs tonight. But to do something in the spirit of herbs. We usually do Jackass of the Week. I'm going to change that for this episode. Michael Urban did a great segment back in the day called Killers and Kooks. And I think that we should do, instead of Jackass of the Week, we'll do our Kook of the Week. Okay. So, Steven, who is your Kook of the Week?
So I think anyone has seen this, and today he actually announced his resignation. You probably didn't see it because you're not a soccer guy. But Luis Rubiales, the Spanish Football Association president. I don't know if you saw it, but during the medal ceremony after Spain beat England on Sunday morning, when they're on the stage doing the medal ceremony, I don't know if you've watched it, Derek, but it's a great event.
You know I have it.
All right. The players walk up one by one. They shake the hands of the officials. They get their medal, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Spanish FA president kissed one of the players on the lips. And that's a no-no. And also, there's this video. I know it's messed up, but I couldn't help but laugh because it's objectively funny if you're watching it. But when they're celebrating a goal He or when they're celebrating their win, I think it was after their win, once they got the win or after the goal in the 29th minute, but they show the camera on him and he's going nuts. And then he kind of grabs his crotch and then does like a little Michael Jackson move, like that kind of thing. It's like, whoa, this is a little much. But anyway, yeah, he ended up resigning today because I think the Spanish prime minister called what he did. Oh no, he called his apology inadequate. Then the deputy prime minister said that he should resign. He also went on a radio like right after and said, it's just a peck celebrating between, longtime team members. And then he ended up sending an apology video. It's been a mess for that dude, but he's gone.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So Luis Rubiales, kook of the week.
Okay, I will take your word for it. I don't have to watch this video, but it sounded like the man just wanted to give some smooches.
I mean, but that's not on the world. You shouldn't do it on the world stage.
Yeah, maybe not.
She posted like an Instagram. Oh, dude. And then he tried.
Didn't Robert Kraft kiss people on the lips when he gave like the AFC Championship trophy out?
I don't know.
Some people are just affectionate, Steven.
Well, probably with Tom Brady. Tom Brady kisses his children. Why not kiss the owner, Robert Kraft? I don't know. But because
you don't know where that mouth's been.
The Spanish president,
Jupiter, Florida,
also put out a fake statement, like trying to rid him of anything this week. So, yeah, just a messed up situation this weekend, man.
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
My kook of the week is John Fisher. This sit-down interview he did with Raj Mathai is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I love Raj Mathai, but this interview is stupid because if you know anything about it, it was a one-on-one exclusive. John Fisher does not do many interviews. However, this interview is basically B-roll. So, the details of it are John Fisher allowed access to Raj Mathai and the NBC crew into his home. However, they were only allowed to film their interactions. There is no audio of this interview. So anytime you see it on NBC or on Twitter or YouTube, it is just clips of B-roll in the background. And only quotes were allowed to be taken from the interview. I listened to his quote. Or I didn't listen to his quote. I read his quote. It's something along the lines of, you never want to leave Oakland, blah, 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 but Vegas gives us the opportunity to win, whatever. If you're going to do the interview, do it all the way. This is stupid. This is fucking stupid. And it just shows the type of guy that John Fisher is.
It's a puff piece.
Yeah.
All of it's a puff piece in their move to Vegas to make it sound great. Like, I don't believe anything he says. Like when he says, we lost 40 million last year. We've lost 175 million over the past few years. And it wasn't just Raj Mathai. He did a long form interview with a guy from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And as we know from those newspapers, those guys tend to be mouthpieces for said teams that are going to be in their area. And the questions were just such softball questions. Like the one that really got me, among others, there's plenty. Like he talked about his love for sports and his love for baseball. He hasn't shown his face at any games. He doesn't do anything. And the one that got me was like right at the beginning, and it was there have been a lot of critics who have been talking about the past 2 years, the past 2 seasons, and you've been tanking deliberately so that fans wouldn't come to games. How about you ask him about the last decade and a half instead of just the last 2 seasons after they've traded everyone? The last 2 seasons, the last 2 seasons have been a result of those trades. It's not like the last 2 seasons, all of this has just happened where they're deliberately tanking. They've been deliberately tanking. Just unfortunately for them, the players that they drafted were a little too good, like Matt Chapman and Matt Olson and those guys. And Marcus Semien wasn't drafted by the A's, but they didn't expect any of them to do what they did. I think they've been deliberately tanking since, that year when they had 7 guys in the All-Star team, and all of a sudden they were just traded by the year's end. Like the Josh Donaldson, Brandon Moss. I can't even name all those players right away or off the top of my head, but it's just you do a media appearance. The first time I've never heard from I have never heard from Fisher. Just never heard from him. And also, he don't take any accountability.
Nope.
He's like, oh, this is my family's money. It's not mine. It's not my money. It's my family's money. And we didn't have enough money to spend. Blah blah blah. It's like, and also the stadium too. Didn't even ask about the stadium and not doing any renovations on it the past decade. It was talking about strictly the team and the roster and all that.
Yeah.
It's just a mess.
Yep. Hated every second of that.
Oh, by the way, he as this podcast was going on, they officially submitted the relocation application. They've been doing it for a while. They've been in the process. They officially submitted it as we were doing this.
Well, that was bound to happen. But I think Michael Urban would agree that this week's Kook of the Week is John Fisher, along with your guy as well. What was his name again?
Luis Rubiales.
Luis Rubiales. So yeah, we're gonna hold all the questions for just your questions, man, probably for next time. Just because we've gone along a little too long here. And we got a few questions, but you guys gotta send us some questions, man. Otis Bird, AJ Cruz. Actually, AJ Cruz sent us a question, so we'll answer his question next time.
Are we big enough to have like a podcast?
Probably not.
I don't
Probably
think we're
not.
popular enough for that. I don't think we're a little too small.
We'll see.
Time.
Hey, you know what? If we'll see how big we are.
Yeah, let's just throw out a mailbag. Hey, we'll answer your questions. We will. Us.
All two of them. Where do we send questions? You guys can send it to our Twitter page.
Yeah. And by the way, if you've missed any, I'm going to try and do this more, but we don't have producers, right? We do this. We do, we do this ourselves. And if you don't know, but producing a podcast is really time consuming and really hard, especially when you're,
it's a pain in the ass
when you got other stuff, especially when I got to do it with you. But when we're doing stuff with the day-to-day lives, like, it's hard to get this stuff out. But anyway, trying to post more like clips on YouTube from the previous episode if you missed anything. So we'll roll those out on Twitter, create a thread out of it, just in case you want to focus on a specific clip, just at JYOM podcast on Twitter.
There you go. And yes, Otis Bird, you can ask us anything you like. We're all for it. Before we get out of here,
I'll answer everything. You know what I mean? Like, there's some questions. I was like, woo.
Yeah, just don't ask me about Greg. That's off limits.
No, it's not. Absolutely ask him.
No,
about
I
Greg.
don't. I have to answer to him enough. We started the podcast honoring our late friend who passed away, Michael Urban, and I just want to end with a funny story that I think we all remember with Michael Urban. It became kind of a quote around 95.7 The Game. Michael Urban didn't really know our program director, Don Collins, very well. To start off, like Don came into the fold, the summer of 2015, and Herbs, to his credit, man, would always end the show with gratitudes. He wanted to thank everybody in his life, from his kids to his wife to everyone that gave him a second chance, because he lost an opportunity being on TV and being on KMBR. Then he went to 95.7 The Game. He thanked Jeremiah Crow every single week for giving him an opportunity. And then when Crow left, it was our new program director, Don Collins. And something we quoted all the time was Herbs didn't know him very well, so he got his name wrong. And he called him Don Cooper, who was he's the White Sox coach?
Yeah.
So on the air, it was one of my favorite moments. It was me, Jacob, and Elena all working together. And Herb so confidently on the air goes, I want to thank the new program director, Don Cooper. I don't know him, but and then Jacob is like shaking his head at him and he goes, what? Not his name? Not his name? Okay, not his name. I'll get it right next time. So for years, we basically called our boss Don Cooper because Michael Urban got his name wrong. And it was just a funny thing that we all remember. I think all of us still remember that to this day. It's just a funny thing.
Yeah. Yep. I'll never forget. I remember just talking to him about the evolution of Mac Miller. That was one of our final, before he came on the podcast, like in person. That was one of our final conversations. We were supposed to do a pre-show meeting, and instead of like talking about sports, we just talked about Mac Miller's discography for like 45 minutes.
I remember
Yeah.
the one time I pissed him off. I texted him. I was trying to get the late great Vita Blue on, and it didn't work out. I think, but and maybe he did come on. I forget. But Herbs is a big Vita Blue guy,
Yeah.
big, and I accidentally texted him, "Vita may come on, VITA," and Herbs immediately goes, "That's awesome, but bro, it's VIDA. Do you not know how to fucking spell the legend's name?" I was like, "Oh, my bad." He wouldn't let it go. Like 5 or 6 texts in a row being like, "Bro, baseball reference. That's the fucking Bay Area legend. Show him some respect." I'm like, "All right, Herbs, that's enough."
Yep, he was loyal, man.
He was loyal, dude. Rest in peace. We love Michael Urban, and we'll miss him. And if you're listening to this podcast, we'll end this podcast with a few of the best moments of when he met with me and Steven a couple years ago to give us a great interview. Sunday, Steven, good for you for next one.
Sunday should work.
All right, we'll figure it out. Well, your voice got high there, so maybe not.
Voice got high.
We'll figure it out. I know we usually end this podcast by saying just your opinion, man, but in honor of Michael Urban, I thought that we just give our gratitudes for people that we're thankful for in our lives. So, Steven, if you want to do that real quick.
Okay, I'm grateful for my fiance who's in the room over and is always who listens to pretty much every podcast. I'm grateful for anyone who tunes in here. I am great. Oh, we are busy on Sunday. All right, there we go. And she's also grateful for her for keeping me in line.
All right, we'll figure it out then. Monday, baby. Then
grateful for you, buddy. I'm grateful for just for everyone, man. Everyone who's involved in my life. I know I don't really have anyone specific, but it's been a trying time for me personally over the past couple of years, with my dad passing away. So I'm grateful for you, for anyone who's kind of been there since that time. So,
and I'm grateful for you, man, for doing this every week. Grateful for all the people in my life. I know it's hard to name each individual person, but I love everybody, and especially love Michael Urban, and I will miss him. And in the words of him from back in the day, I think we'll just end this podcast with what he used to say every week to piss off A's fans. Derek Barton, 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 Derek Barton.